Hello, friends. Welcome back to the coaching adventure of creativity. This is our third week, and we have first started with looking out, and then we began to look in, and the introspection that we use in order to express ourselves is really the key to learning more about ourselves and being able to access our creativity. So today, what I want us to talk about is letting go. And what do I mean by that? Many of us have felt the strictures from the outside, the expectations and standards set by others, whether it's in a job, whether it's in school, whether it's in your family or your church, whatever it is, there are guidelines. And those strictures become deeply internalized as we move along. And we think that we have to live within those bounds. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. The thing that I would encourage you to do is to explore your feeling space, your internal landscape. And it doesn't mean rejecting all of the boundaries or any of the standards. What it means is just understanding your relationship to them and noticing that you're choosing them or not. And that's really what letting go is all about. Now, I have, when I share my screen, you'll see some images from a celebration in Spain that uses color to express just wild delight in color. And what you'll notice is that this probably exceeds the bounds of your normal everyday life. And so it's an invitation. It's an invitation to explore what you respond to, who you are. And you can choose whichever bounds you wish. You can choose the bounds, the standards, any of those things. There's nothing wrong with those choices. It's just a matter of understanding your relationship to them. So let me share my screen with you, and we will. Here we go. Creativity. So here is the image that I just referred to. And this is a celebration that is simply wild. And I believe it's also performed in India. There are several different countries that use color as a way of expressing their joy, their celebration of life. And so what I'd like you to do is be able to understand how it feels to let go of the control, the tight control that you may have on yourself. Some of it may be imposed from the outside, but the vast majority of it is actually under our own control. And in particular, it is often in reaction to self-judgment. We judge ourselves so harshly. We judge ourselves more harshly than we judge anyone else in the world. And that's why. Why is that? Why do we judge ourselves so harshly? Some of that comes from the past, our misinterpretation of the instructions we've gotten or the guidelines that we've had. But some of it is an idea of being able to protect yourself. When you judge yourself before someone else does, it makes their judgment a little less stinging. So we basically say, oh, I'm not that good at it. And that's really a way to kind of step back and not let someone think that you are good at it. So letting go of control and self-judgment is a wonderful way to access not only who you are, but how you would like to express yourself creatively, the choices you want to make. And when we look at our animal friends, our animal colleagues, and our animal compatriots, we can learn a lot from them. They tend to be less self-judgmental and less controlled in terms of of their society. They do have strictures, but I think when you look at animals, you often are able to understand what freedom in terms of your own self and movement and behaviors might look like. So another way to let go of that tight rein of control is improv. Improvisational behavior. Life is a series of improvisational opportunities. And so whether it's improv in music, whether it's improv in impulse, to touch, to interact, whatever it is, when you think about it, life is improvisational. That is, each circumstance we react to. And one of the hallmarks of improv when you're doing it on stage is a yes and model. So a circumstance or situation happens, someone says something, something crops up, and you say yes and. In improv, somebody sets up a situation and you never say, no, 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 that didn't happen. You always say yes and this, you add to it. And that is an excellent model for how we can let go of control of all the different events that create circumstances in our life. So when we say, yes, this happened, and then you have a choice. You have a choice of how you are going to deal with that situation presented. So the yes and model, the improv model of yes and, is an excellent way to relinquish control, or relinquish at least part of the control that we try to have on every aspect of our lives. Another really, really good way to let go of self-judgment is disidentification. Now, what do I mean by disidentification? I mean that generally speaking, when we're not consciously doing otherwise, we identify with this body, with our thinking, with our thoughts, with our ideas. We believe that we are our thoughts, our actions, and our bodies. If we take a step back, if we take a step away and disidentify, that means not identify with our bodies, our thoughts, our behaviors, we have the opportunity to take a look at ourselves from a little different perspective. And when we do that, when we aren't believing that we are our thoughts, that we are our behaviors, that we are our actions in life, our reactions in life, our emotions in life, when we get that little distance and have choice, we also can appreciate this little animal body. We can let go to a certain degree of judging ourselves, because instead we raise curiosity about, well, who is this little body? What does this little animal being need in life? Why is this little person doing this behavior? How do I react to a situation and guide this little animal being in terms of choice and self-expression? So disidentification is a powerful tool in terms of gaining some sense of pause between what happens and how you choose to respond rather than react. So disidentification is a tool that helps you to make choices in your life, to become and do the things that you want to do, you believe in doing, that you think are useful to life, and that are really deriving from that better part of you, rather than the reactive little animal being. Okay. So disidentification with your thoughts, your body, your history, your products, your habits. So no longer do you diss the things that you do. Like when you create something, instead of being hypercritical about it, you can say, oh, look, this little animal in which I am living produced a photograph or produced a painting or produced this music. And it's no longer, oh, I failed to hit that note. I failed to make that move. It's not I, but it is from the witness point of view. That disidentification gives you a little distance, and it allows you instead to step into your better self, to step into your higher self. And it's helpful to remember that I am not my thoughts. I am not my body. I am not my history. I am not my products. I am not my habits. Instead, I see those thoughts. I see this body. I see the history and products and habits, all of which really show up in this life form, this little animal body that essentially carries my spirit, my higher self, my witness self. So I'm going to tell you just a few of the models that you can use, a few of the techniques and tools that you may find useful. Now, all of these things are going to be shortchanged right now. I'm just going to introduce them. And it will be really important, if you find any of them useful, that you explore them further. So when you want to disidentify with your thoughts, the first thing you can do is use language. So this is per the ACT tools. This ACT is Stephen Hayes's brilliant psychological rethought of how using language can change your relationship to what you think. So for an example, you might think, oh, I'm not good enough to do a painting. Well, if you want to use language, you might say, I have the thought that I'm not good enough to do the painting. That's one of the ACT tools, to use language. I had the thought that. Another step back might be, I notice I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough to do the painting. So each time you use language to step back, it gives you a little space, a little pause. You may also find this when you look at a cluster of thoughts. For an example, if you have a whole story about how your mother mistreated you and how she was very critical and how that damaged you in some way in terms of your growing up, you can take each individual thought and work on it. But before you do that, you can take the whole cluster of thoughts and you can say, this is the story I tell myself about my mom's bad treatment, or you can name the story. The name the story includes all of those individual thoughts that make up the story. And this is the way you help yourself in terms of gaining a little bit of distance, because what you're doing, your thinking is not you. The story you tell yourself is not you. But we make meaning, as we've discussed, and as we make meaning, we build a story. We build it of many, many thoughts. When you clump them together, you can name that story, and you can name it a color, you can name it what it does. Any way you can adds a little bit of distance and helps you to step outside of all of that story that you tell yourself. It's kind of like being caught in a riptide sometimes. And so if you step back, name the story, you have a pause, you have a little moment of choice. That gives you a little bit of distance between you and the stories you tell yourself. This is an amazingly helpful tool when you are trying to let go of some of the things that hold you back, particularly in terms of choice and creativity. So Stephen Hayes. The next thing that I want to mention is Brooke Castillo. Now, Brooke was also trained by Martha Beck, and in the meantime, she has gone off and created her own empire. And the central piece of what Brooke teaches, if you go to Brooke Castillo online or to her school, you'll find that the model is what the tool she uses to enable her to disassociate from her thought and have a new thought. So the notion is that our thoughts provide the basis for our feelings and our emotions. And those emotions are what give you the energy or fuel your actions in life. And your actions in life provide you with the results that you see. So our thoughts actually construct are the first step in developing a whole life. Brooke has taken that to an amazing place where you have the circumstance that you're having a difficulty with, let's say your mother's criticism. You have that circumstance. What do you make that mean? The circumstance is always considered neutral. So, what do you make it mean that you had negative input from your mother? Okay, I'm making it mean that I'm not good enough. It makes me feel like I have a thought that I am not good enough to do the painting. And that is your choice. That part of the model is where you begin to take control. The circumstance is a given, it's neutral, but how you deal with it, your relationship to it starts with your thought. From that thought, if you think, oh, I'm not good enough to make the painting, that makes me feel sad. It makes me feel frustrated. I have a lot of feelings when I have that thought. And those feelings fuel my behavior. So I might avoid expressing myself. I might not make the painting. I might not do those dances. I might not make music. Whatever it is, those creative outlets, I might not write poetry because I don't feel good enough to do it. And the result then of those actions of not doing it are you create a life in which you do not express yourself. You do not allow your feelings to show. You do not behave in a way that expresses who you are and makes choices about how you create your life. So in Brooke's model, that would be the unintentional model, but you can continue the process in an intentional model. What that means is you take the same circumstance, my mother disapproved of me or whatever it was, and that circumstance is a given and that's neutral. And then you can choose a different thought. What would happen if you choose the thought, I I see that my mother was projecting something onto me and I am not defined by her thoughts or her behaviors. Okay. So does that feel better? That thought may make you feel a little better. If that thought makes you feel a little better, you then notice that you feel a little better and you then behave in a different way and you say, well, I may not be good enough in someone else's eyes, but I love to paint. So I am going to paint. So the actions that follow are you paint, and then the results you've created are I have expressed myself in painting to the best of my ability. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, it's simply the enjoyment that I had in it. I've created a highly self expressive life. So that is an opening for you. Brooke Castillo, that's the model. And we talk about it more in other classes. The work is Byron Katie's contribution. Byron Katie is another brilliant woman who has tapped into the notion that our thinking is often very repetitive. And when it's repetitive, it becomes automatic. And so whenever something happens, we have automatic thinking about it that may not be true, it may not be helpful, and it may not be an alignment with whatever is going on in the universe. Her notion is that the universe, anything that happens, is meant to happen. And you may fight it, but as she always says, you will lose only 100% of the time when you fight reality, when you fight the universe, when you fight what is going on. She has something called the work, which you can look up online. It's a series of questions that open your mind to the possibility that what you're telling yourself is not true. So through a series of questions and then turnarounds where you test out the opposite thinking, or you test out a change in who's doing what, you open your mind to a new possibility. And it's a very powerful method to break through some of the deep, well-seated thoughts that maybe you're telling yourself again and again and again. Finally, one of the most accessible means for opening your mind and trying to learn disidentification with yourself is meditation. There are hundreds and thousands of ways of meditating, but if you take a moment to meditate, to come into the present moment, to really give yourself the space and time to practice having a pause between the thought that arises and your reaction to it. In that little space, you are able to make a choice. You can let the thought go, you can follow it down, you can react, or you can respond. So, meditation is a very strong tool that allows you to make choices. And as we've already learned, creativity is all about choices and self expression. So, all of these tools and techniques gain you distance between you, the small animal of your body, including your brain, and you, your spirit, soul, heart, and higher self, the witness you. And the you that allows you greatest freedom in life is the you that is the spirit, the soul, the heart, the higher self, the witness. So another thing that's very helpful is to do the what do I need to hear practice. Sometimes when we have negative stories that we tell ourselves, or negative thoughts or judgments and criticism, self-judgment and self-criticism, if we make a practice of, this would be journaling, if we make a practice of answering the question, what do I need to hear? You may need to hear that you're good enough. You may need to hear that you can do that painting, that it's fine for you to do that dance. It's certainly fine for you to take a new job. Whatever it is you need to hear, you can say, I need to hear, and then whatever it is. When you write those things down, you can say, I need to hear that I am lovable. I need to hear that I am lovable. And then you can tell yourself, I am lovable. It's kind of a step up to affirmations. When we give ourselves affirmations, we say, I am capable. I am in the process of becoming a better me. Whatever the affirmation is, sometimes they feel a little untrue if they are a big leap from where you are now. And so by taking the what do I need to hear practice and doing that, it feels much more truthful. I need to hear that I'm lovable. Instead of just jumping into I am lovable, you say, I need to hear that I am lovable. And that allows you to speak completely truly and identify exactly what it is you need to hear. And then you can tell yourself you are lovable. Once you've identified this is something you need to hear, you can listen to yourself telling you what you need to hear. So if you write these things down, it's a wonderful practice, very, very strong practice. And in particular, when you're endeavoring to find your greater creative self, your greater expressive self, what I need to hear, what do I need to hear? Those things bolster you. They are very foundational in terms of establishing essentially a strong foundation. So this is an adjunct to the gratitude practice that we talk about in some other courses, in particular the cornerstones. Gratitude, the gratitude practice, what you're thankful for and why you're thankful for it, is one of the most powerful tools to a more joyous life. So all of those things that I've just mentioned to you give you freedom. When you disidentify from yourself, when you gain a little bit of distance between you and your thoughts, your body, your habits, your behaviors, when you are free from those, you are free to make choices. You have the space in which to express yourself. And that is exactly the freedom that we need in order to feel optimal creativity. So the engagement that I recommend is for you to buy, or if you have some molding material like Sculpty, Fimo is less good for this, it's a little too stiff, some clay or some plasticine, any of the molding. I think Model Magic is okay, but it really is a little too, it dries so quickly. And also some of the materials that you may sculpt with are never going to be able to dry. So when you use something like Sculpty, you can create your sculpture, and then if you wish, you can keep it, you can bake it, and you'll have it forever. If you want to do multiple sculptures or make it again and again, then I would suggest don't bake it, just go ahead and resculpt it. What is a blind joy sculpture? Essentially, what I'd like you to do is close your eyes and take your modeling material and feel joy, feel effervescence, feel delight, and using those feelings, create your sculpture. It doesn't matter how it looks. It is capturing a feeling. And so this is completely personal. It's completely up between you and the material that you're working. But the blind joy sculpture is a way to disengage from standards that may enhance self-criticism or self-judgment. So when we step away from that, we just enjoy the process. And so sculpting joy is one of the best ways to simply express yourself, your own joy, your own feelings, without having a standard or an objective end in sight. You're simply feeling the feelings and allowing it to express in the molding material. After that, we want to reflect and journal. And answer the question as your journal, why is criticism easier than finding the positive, especially for your own products? So when you look at someone else's sculpture, it might be easy to say, doesn't really say anything, or a painting that just doesn't resonate with you. And it's easy to say, well, it doesn't have any warm colors in it. It's all cool colors. And, I don't care for that. But if you are wanting to express yourself, instead of going with criticism, you may want to see the positive. So you might look at the painting here and go, well, there's some interesting lines here. There's some interesting mark making. It looks like something was dragged across the paint. It was smeared. It wasn't brushed on. And you can find something that is positive, not only in someone else's work, but most importantly, in your own work. So after you're finished with that, we have other opportunities for further engagement during the week. You can dance your feelings. Again, like the joy sculpture, you can dance different feelings. You can do a meditation that is candle gazing. So light a candle and just look at the flame for 10 minutes. This is a very powerful expression of meditation. A TED Talk by Janet Eshelman from 2011 is really an interesting talk. And then there's an article also that about artists' self-care rituals. So what I encourage you to do is explore the notions of disidentification. Check out some of these things and see if it encourages you to find more about yourself, to learn more about yourself, express more about yourself, and hold off doing the self-criticism and self-judgment. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and there we are. So I am really excited about our work together, and in particular when we're looking at this topic of disidentification. It is one of the most powerful tools that we have in order to step back, appreciate that which we do, and not limit ourselves by any other's expectations or our own. And so I want to encourage you to meditate and to explore, have fun with your joy sculpture, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.